With LiveWell Colorado, and I'm going to be starting today's webinar. I have a couple of housekeeping items to cover before we get started. The first is that we will be recording this webinar, and it will be available beginning tomorrow on LiveWell Colorado's website. To access the recording, simply visit livewellcolorado.org, click on the LiveWell's Commitment tab, click on Research and Publications, and select Webinars. The second item is that we will have some time for Q&A at the end of the webinar. If possible, please let us know who your question is directed to when you ask it. And to ask your question, simply type it into the Questions tab on your on-screen control panel. Now I'd like to introduce our first speaker today, Lisa Walvoord.
Great. Thank you so much, Alex. We're really excited at LiveWell Colorado to offer this webinar today. As many of you know, that LiveWell Colorado is focused on making healthy eating and active living the easy and default choice for Coloradans. And this webinar is focused on the fast-growing field of food hubs. It's something that's emerging all over the country, and that the popularity is reflected in the number and locations of registrants today. We have over 100 registrants from California to Virginia. The bulk of us are from Colorado, but it's exciting to see the interest that's all over the country for this, this area of work. There's a growing number of different models for aggregating and distributing healthy foods, and we've got a couple of them that we're going to share with you today. So let's see, we switch to the objectives. We've got three primary objectives. The first is really just helping the audience become more familiar with the food hub concept in general and the strengths and challenges to that, particularly when it plays into local economic development and healthy food access. We'll share a couple of models that are here in Colorado to aggregate Colorado both foods and value-added food products to reach a wider audience of consumers and institutions. And then here's some of the lessons learned from those who are developing these different approaches to help inform your efforts. And as Alex mentioned, an important part of these webinars is hearing your questions and giving you a chance to hear back from our expert panelists. So please do be thinking about what questions you have and provide them as we go along, and include the target person. If there's one person in particular who you'd like to respond to your question, if you could include that, that would be helpful. So we've got three presenters today, Darien Cabral from Cota Holdings, and then Dan Hobbs from Excelsior Farms Exchange, and Elizabeth Mozer from LoCo Food Distribution. And then I'll give some closing thoughts and open up the Q&A to give you all a chance to get any of those last questions in. But again, please be submitting your questions as we go along. So we always like to share those beautiful pictures of our presenters. At first up, we've got Darien, who has been working in the field of economic development and business planning in New Mexico for over 30 years, both as a director of various organizations and as a partner in consulting firms. Most recently, he's gotten involved with agriculture, and in conjunction with the Rocky Mountain Farmers Union is completing 4 food hub plans in southern Colorado and northern New Mexico. And I now welcome Darien, and he'll be kind of setting the stage and sharing some considerations as folks want to move forward with this work.
Thank you. Why don't we go back to the first slide one more time, and I'll make a comment about the picture. I'm located in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and one of the interesting food hub plans we're working on is for an Indian food hub. It'll be the first in the country. We're working with the 10 southern Pueblos, and the Pueblo people, unlike many other Indian people around the country, have been farmers for thousands of years, and they still grow. So this is going to be a very interesting project. And this particular picture is from Jemez Pueblo, which is just north of Albuquerque, and it just shows right outside the Pueblo proper some of the cornfields and crops that are grown. And the people that grow these crops, by and large, really don't know what to do with them. I mean, they preserve food, they give food away, they have food at feasts, and they always have more food than they know what to do with. So we're hoping that the food hub will help to commercialize food production on the Pueblos, and that's what food hubs are for, is to commercialize production and wholesale sales of farmers everywhere. So the next slide. So I'm sure you guys have noticed that the local food movement is sweeping the country. And local food is about local production for local consumption, taste of place, and the patronization of farms for products that focus on sustainable growing practices. And really, environmental issues is a major part of the impetus for the local food movement. Growing local food is much better for the environment than factory farms. So restaurants, distributors, everyone wants to know about local food, and it's quite amazing. So nationally, what we're finding is the market for local food is constrained much more by supply rather than demand, and that's what food hubs are all about, to try and get the supply side to meet the market. Next. So here's just a couple of pictures of local food, a farm and a magazine that focuses on local food. There was just a meeting in Albuquerque yesterday that I went to, and there was over 70 people at that meeting talking about local food, including local governments, counties, cities, nonprofits, farmers, you name it. So it's just going through the roof. It's quite amazing. And when I did the the two plans for southern Colorado, just along the Front Range from Boulder all the way down to Pueblo, the demand from everyone is amazing, and the production is just not there. Next. The local food market is growing about 30% a year. At the same time, total local food right now as a share of the food market in general in the United States is less than 1%. But the big stores, the big distributors are noticing this. Regular food, grocery store food, is pretty flat at about growing at about 1 or 2% a year. So everyone wants to get into local food, including major businesses. Go ahead. There was just a survey done by the Wallace Center of Food Hubs, and there are roughly 200 food hubs in the country, and more coming all the time, which doesn't mean that it's easy to put a food hub or organize a food hub, put a food hub together. It's a challenging process. But the good news is that you don't have to start from scratch. There are very successful food hubs, very successful models, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Go ahead. So what is a food hub? It's an organization that manages aggregation of local product, and aggregation is the key. And it does that in order to better distribute, market, identify local sourcing, and strengthen the ability of local growers to satisfy institutional markets. Growers usually have a pretty, not an easy time, but they primarily look at farmers markets and growers markets, but it's much more difficult for growers to satisfy institutional markets, and that's what food hubs are all about. Okay? This is information from the Wallace Center, and just gives you an idea of what's happening in this country. The average food hub now in 2012 has sales that exceed $3 million, with almost 20 people working at them. And they sell mostly to restaurants, grocery stores, schools. We'll have a list of potential customers a little bit later in the presentation. And most food hubs are experiencing increasing demand. At the same time, a number of food hubs have not made it or are falling flat. So there's a lot of challenge in putting it together, but the elements are in place to make it happen. Okay? And food hubs do a lot. Again, it's mainly allowing local producers to reach local large markets. Your institutional buyers are interested in volume, consistency of supply, and quality. And it is difficult for small farmers to do that, if not impossible. The food hub allows farmers to aggregate their product and give wholesale markets what they're looking for. Okay? So food hubs work on the supply side and promote sustainable production practices. Production planning is a big one. If there's production planning, then growers can target markets and grow what markets are demanding You don't have a grower growing, one type of vegetable or one type of crop and flooding the market with that kind of crop. So production planning is a major issue and a major benefit that food hubs provide. Seasonal extensions through hoop houses and greenhouses and value-added products, packaging, branding, various kinds of certifications. Food safety is a big one. And insurance. So all these things are important to growers and enhance their ability to access local markets. Go ahead. Food hubs, however, also work on the demand side by coordinating efforts with distributors and buyers and processors and wholesalers and even consumers. One thing that seems to be taking off around the country, especially in Colorado, are agricultural buying clubs. For a long time we saw CSA, Community Supported Agricultural Organizations, and the buying clubs, I think, are a little bit more consumer friendly, and they're really taking off. So let's talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. Go ahead. Again, this is kind of repeating what we said before, but food hubs focus on aggregating product, and let me just get back to my screen here. And the difference between a food hub and kind of what used to fulfill the functions of a food hub, which are packing houses, is that food hubs really focus on local growers and local markets. Next. It's important to market well, and there's product differentiation strategies. One of the best ones is to identify individual farms, where food comes from, branding, and to talk about sustainable production practices. More and more consumers want to know the story of their food, where it comes from, what makes it different. The other thing that food hubs and local growers provide is unbeatable freshness and quality. You can't compete with local food for freshness and quality. So there's a lot of reasons why people choose to consume locally. So food hubs work very closely with producers to try and meet buyer requirements. And the big thing really that food hubs have to always have in mind if they want to be sustainable is profitability. In general, I think it takes at least 4 to 5 years of grant funding or outside funding to keep a food hub afloat until it reaches a volume where it can sustain itself. But anyone that runs a food hub or manages the food hub needs to have that as their ultimate goal to wean themselves of grant funding. Okay? Here's a list of potential customers. These just come from the food hub plans I just made. There's lots, from school cafeterias to universities to hospitals to senior homes to preschool programs, food banks and national grocery stores, restaurants, buying clubs, employers, where often employers don't like people soliciting, but if you're a farmer and you have local produce, you can often go and solicit employees. After work, they pick up their basket of goods that they ordered online and go home instead of having to go to the grocery store. Then there's wholesale distributors, co-ops, CSAs, government offices, and so forth. Next. One thing we were asked to address is food access, especially to low-income people. And the USDA just categorized New Mexico, the whole state basically, as a food desert. So what is a food desert? A food desert is a place where ready and easy access to healthy and affordable food is not available. And the paradox in northern New Mexico, where I live and work mostly, is that, and this is also in Colorado too, maybe not quite to the degree it is in New Mexico, but that the places where farmers actually grow food are rural, they're out of the way, and the farmers that grow the food don't have access to healthy, good food at the grocery store. Usually they have to buy from convenience stores because that's the only type of food distribution facility that locates in these places. And convenience stores, because of their size and their inability to buy in bulk, simply cannot provide good, healthy food. And so people end up buying fast food and sugar-laced food, and you have obesity and diabetes and other health problems that come from inadequate diets. So this is a huge issue. So how do food hubs address this? Next slide. Really, the only way that food hubs can address this, at least that we've found, and maybe there's other ways that we haven't thought about, is to form a nonprofit organization that works in conjunction with the food hub. You know, the food hub has to take, I think, has to look at profitability as a major goal. Food hubs in Colorado that we work with can access the Boulder, Denver markets, which are huge markets. The food hubs in New Mexico that we work with are accessing the Santa Fe, Los Alamos, Albuquerque markets, which are affluent markets. And those are your prime markets, because that's where the people are, that's where the money is, that's where the consciousness is about food. So you really have to look at those markets. So then what about the rural folks? Well, you know, you have to look at different types of programs that are going to be funded by grants. And this type of a thing I think can actually work with ongoing grant funding, you know, to look at subsidized healthy food to rural areas. So the model that we put forward on most of the plans that I did is to have a food hub that is a for-profit cooperative that works with an interlocking nonprofit. The nonprofit ends up distributing food to rural areas where food is not accessible, and ends up buying from the food hub, while the food hub cooperative concentrates on profitability. So that's what we've been putting out, and we have 4 plans that are in process. One is done up in Pueblo, another plan is in the San Luis Valley area, Alamosa, and we're doing a plan in Albuquerque for the Indian Pueblos, and also one in northern New Mexico. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Darien. It's really exciting, some of the things that are going on, and providing that good foundation I think is helpful. And you know, one of the challenges is certainly the economic side and how to make the equation affordable. How do we meet the demand of people who can afford and are driving the demand for local food, and also meet the very strong needs of those who are not getting the healthier food. So thank you very much. And I'm sure that there will be questions for you, and we'll be sharing your contact information with folks if they've got follow-up questions as well afterwards. Next up, I'm pleased to introduce Dan Hobbs. Dan is a 5th-generation Coloradan, so he's pretty unique. Most of us have got here as fast as we could, but we didn't grow up here. He farms 30 acres of organic seed and vegetables in Pueblo County, Colorado, which is not the same as the Pueblo area that Darien just referenced. He works as a cooperative specialist with the Rocky Mountain Farmers Union and is a founding member of the Arkansas Valley Organic Growers. And he's going to share more of a case study of how some longtime farmers have done this and can do this. It's a grower-owned model. So, Dan, take it away.
Great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Actually, the Pueblo project that Darien just mentioned is, in fact, this Excelsior Farmers Exchange that I'm going to talk about. He helped us with a feasibility study and business plan last fall and last winter, and now we're into an implementation stage.
Thank you.
Yeah, want to stay very focused on the experiences of this Arkansas Valley Organic Growers group, and kind of some of the challenges we face, the development process, and we're still very much in process, by the way. We've been at this for 3 or 4 years now, but we've still got a ways to go. So let's go ahead and, well, that's the picture you're looking at is there is me in our famous local Pueblo chili that we're very proud of here. We're located in southeastern Colorado, approximately 120 miles south of Denver on the Front Range of the Rockies. Okay, next slide. Darien talked about this notion of interlocking organizations, nonprofit organization working in conjunction with a cooperative. And so I wanted to just spend a quick minute on cooperatives. The Arkansas Valley Organic Growers group that founded the Excelsior Farmers Exchange is a co-op. These are for-profit entities. They're democratically run, and of course there's all kinds of different co-ops. A couple examples, there's some big business co-ops around the country, Land O'Lakes Butter, Ocean Spray, REI, there's consumer co-ops, producer co-ops, worker co-ops, and then interestingly, in recent years, we've got multi-stakeholder co-ops, which tend to have multiple classes of ownerships. The Arkansas Valley Organic Growers is a 7-member producer-owned cooperative. Okay, next slide. And a quick overview. A lot of people, I think of the West as a independent, sort of rugged place, but in fact, it's been built on cooperation. One of the great early examples are the mutual ditch companies of the 1890s. There was a lot of consolidation along the railways in these years. Some of you from history lessons might remember the robber barons. The farmers got together in the 1890s to form these ditch companies and basically assessed themselves fees to maintain the ditches. Another great example, we've got the Colorado Cooperative Lettuce Growers Association that was located up in Chaffee County, the Buena Vista area. They were known for their lettuce up there, peas, cauliflowers. This is in the 1920s, kind of a heyday of cooperatives in the state of Colorado. Then you also had farmer exchanges. The exchanges were essentially places where farmers would go to buy their supplies and sell their goods. So they're very much like these food hubs that we're starting to see. And this is the reason why the Excelsior Farmers Exchange was named after the old farmers exchanges. And then I mentioned the multi-stakeholder co-ops, this last line here, new generation cooperatives. Central Colorado Food Shed Alliance is an interesting organization based out of Salida that has both consumer members, producer members, and business members. All right, next. Old slide of one of the farmers exchanges. This is out of the archives of the Rocky Mountain Farmers Union. Next. And so here we go, Excelsior Farmers Exchange. The original intention, well, I should maybe start with a little history of our group. Again, 7 members. We're basically on the small scale side, certainly small scale by USDA, any USDA definition. Our farms are approximately 10 to 50 acres. We're mixed producers, vegetables, livestock, dairy, grains, cover crops, a few value-added products, not very many though. And many of us, we're basically in our late 30s, 40s, and early 50s. Many of us started with CSA model and farmers markets, got to a point in our farming path where we wanted to get away from a lot of running around and going to farmers markets and such, and so we started looking more seriously at wholesale markets. And I think one important thing about these food hubs is they really do denote a wholesale market for the producer. And so our intention was to set up something in the rural area. It seems like infrastructure is often located in the urban areas, and so we really sought to find a location in the countryside that was close to the farms where we could conduct business, a place where the cost of business would be a little less than being in an urban area, and again, that was accessible from the farm to the farms. We found, had a great consultant, a fellow named Wayne Snyder out of Fowler, Colorado, that helped us with an extensive building search. And preceding the building search, by the way, was a feasibility study. We really took our time at that stage and were clear that we wanted a rural location. So after rooting around for a while, we found this location in eastern Pueblo County near the confluence of the Arkansas and the Huerfano rivers. It was a middle school that was abandoned by the Pueblo School District in the late 80s and has basically been locked up ever since. The school district was great to work with. They gave us very reasonable rent, and we're now currently in the process of renovating approximately 7,000 square feet of this school. It's also located right on Highway Business 50, about 20 miles east of Pueblo. So pretty accessible to farm country and also to the urban areas along the Front Range. All right, next. That's the group. That's the Arkansas Valley Organic Growers, the founding members there at one of our rather formal annual meetings. Okay, next. Okay, so here's some of the basic functions that we're trying to put together at the Excelsior Food Hub. Of course, the aggregation, marketing, and distribution, that's essentially the definition of a food hub, so that's the first thing. Cold and frozen storage, we're in the process of putting up 2 walk-in coolers, one at about 35 degrees and the other about 40 to maintain quality storage for different types of products. Also a small freezer for the livestock products. Commercial kitchen, and the idea here was not so much to create value-added products that were going to go onto grocery shelves, but more things geared towards schools and food service and hospitals. For example, roasted peeled peppers, stewed tomatoes, dried tomatoes, and packed in bulk packages. So that's really the primary intent of the commercial kitchen. We also hope to rent out kitchen space when we're not using it to other community members who have rural-based businesses in the area. Another unique feature to our food hub is we have a farmer seed library and custom seed cleaning equipment. We're very much concerned about the integrity of our seed supplies in this area with lots of transgenic crops coming into the market. So we are, oh gosh, we've got probably 60-some vegetable varieties in the seed library, different than a seed library you'd see in an urban area. These are geared towards production farmers. These are open pollinated, proven workhorse varieties that are going to perform under organic systems. Next would be post-harvest supplies. One barrier that many of us faced over the year was lack of affordable and accessible boxes, bags, etc. Some of the farmers on the line, I'm sure, have experienced trying to order things like this, and the shipping costs just make it prohibitive. So as a group, we have some bargaining power. We can act big and kind of do together what we cannot do alone. Food safety measures, plans, and liability insurance. This is a very important aspect of food hubs and of farmer cooperatives in general. Of course, the FSMA, the Food Safety Modernization Act, comments are due this week, and so we're kind of coming to grips with the fact that this winter we're going to be doing a lot of food safety kind of stuff. Liability insurance can be a real, product liability insurance can be a real help to smaller growers that are looking to access new markets. We also host meetings, workshops, short courses in the school. We've got lots of classrooms that we've cleaned up and are going to be shortly making available to the community. Okay, next. Okay, I'm going to get into some of the specifics here that really relate specifically to the growers, but I do want to just pause and back up for a second. This idea of a nonprofit and a for-profit working together is really what's making this food hub possible. I neglected to say, but we conducted, through a nonprofit organization called New Farms, we conducted a capital campaign over the course of about 3 years, and we raised $285,000 to do the renovations and to move into this school facility. So these 7 growers that are part of this cooperative don't have those kinds of deep pockets, and it would have been virtually impossible for us to finance a facility. But fortunately, the interest from the USDA and also, very significantly from the Colorado foundations in food hubs, we've been able to capitalize the facility with nonprofit dollars. Now, that said, we are being very careful to keep strong firewalls between the for-profit cooperative and the nonprofit. Nonprofit is providing the space, but the cooperative is engaged in the business matters of aggregating, distributing food, and that kind of thing. So we've seen a lot of sort of slop over between for-profit and nonprofit co-ops, and this is a place where a lot of food hubs get into trouble. So if you are contemplating some kind of strategic relationship between a nonprofit and a for-profit, it's important to take your time and really think that through. Okay, so on to production planning. Part of the reason for forming this co-op, besides the fact that we were tired of going to farmers markets, was we were competing with each other during a very small window of each year. August, September, we'd show up at the same restaurants in Colorado Springs with some of the same products. And so early on, we undertook production planning, very cumbersome at first, but it's gotten easier over the years. And what you're looking at here is just a simple spreadsheet which starts to divide up crops by grower in time. And this has really enabled us to diversify our offerings. So the customers have appreciated that, and the growers have appreciated that. It's made us more efficient farmers. There's less sort of local and internal competition, and just generally a very important part of what this group does together. Next. This is probably not very easy to read, but we had some great advice getting started from the Tuscarora Organic Growers Cooperative based in Pennsylvania, and we developed some of our packing and handling materials as a result of their counsel. And this basically keeps us on the same page. You know, we, as sort of independent growers, before we came together, people were packing in different size boxes and used boxes, and so this thing is really, this document serves as sort of a guideline to, you know, keep the quality up, keep the uniformity up, and basically make life easier for management. Okay, next. There's our truck there. We're just, we currently have just a 14-foot refrigerated truck. On the top there it says local food for local people, and it's great advertising driving up and down the front range with this truck. And there's our man Ed, a picture of him this fall, and one of the great services that the co-op has been doing is picking up food directly from the farms. And so this really also helped making the transition from being kind of retail marketers to wholesale marketers. Is there's lots of cost savings to participating in the co-op and in the food hub. So this is a pickup directly off of a farm, and I guess that's about it. Oh well, also the distribution schedule during the summertime is the truck goes out about 3 times a week. Wintertime, 1 time a week. Okay, next. This is a publication, the Farm Beat, that the cooperative puts out. Try to do it quarterly. Don't always manage to do that, but it's become a very important way to tell our story. It's printed on newsprint here through the local paper in town, and we also have an electronic version. Next. All right, I think my time is up. My contact information is there. If anybody would like to contact me offline after the webinar, I'd be happy to talk co-ops and food hubs with you. Thanks a lot.
Great, thanks, Dan. I've always thought conceptually that food hubs make a lot of sense. The economies of scale, both for the farmer and the institutional buyer, you know, the economic and job development components of it that you've brought to light, you know, some of the practical challenges that can be there, and how you guys have conquered some of those, so thanks. I do want to encourage everybody to submit your questions. I know that Darien and Dan have done a fabulous job, but I know they've also sparked for me a number of questions, so I hope they have for you as well. So please do submit those, as we have saved some time at the end to respond to your questions. Next up, we have Elizabeth Mozer, who co-founded the LoCo food distribution in 2011 with the goal of bringing local food to the mainstream marketplace. Before that, she had worked in the environmental nonprofit sector as an educational program director and for a sustainability engineering company. So as Dan had mentioned that, or it might have been Darien, the tie and driver of sustainability and environmental concerns here. She and her husband jointly own LoCo Food Distribution and also an independent movie theater in Fort Collins called the Lyric Cinema Cafe, which sources the majority of its concessions locally, so she's walking the talk, and is now producing local films as well. So Elizabeth, if you would share sort of, you've got a different model about getting more Colorado food products, both raw and processed, to more buyers, including hospitals and other wholesaler purchasers. So we look forward to hearing your story next.
Well, thank you very much, and that was really interesting from Darien and Dan as well, so thank you. And so we are a completely different model from what those two have outlined. We are an all-local food distribution company. We are an LLC, so we're on the for-profit side. And we are based in Fort Collins, Colorado, and we deliver from Fort Collins down to Denver and Boulder and all the communities in between, and we deliver as far west as Greeley. We bring in products from a 400-mile radius, and we chose 400 miles so that we could include all the wonderful fruit from the western slope, a lot of the grains from western Nebraska and Kansas, and some beef from Wyoming, although most of ours really does come from here in Colorado, and then some of the things from the southern part of the state as well. So our effort was really to make a full plate, as it were, of local products, and so that was the reason for the 400-mile radius. It also turns out that the USDA defines local as a 400-mile radius as well. And so folks always ask us, well, why did you start this? And so we found that there was a lot of demand out there. We had our little independent movie theater, and we were trying to source locally for it. And I was running all over the place, going to Greeley to meet up with the farmer's daughter from Fort Morgan to get popcorn, then going to Windsor for cheese, over here for crackers, da-da-da-da-da. And we don't even have a real kitchen. It's a glorified concession stand for a movie theater. And we talked to a lot of other folks, people, chefs with restaurants, grocers, who were trying to source locally but found it really difficult, to be doing all that running around and keeping in touch with that many vendors. And then there were also a number of studies coming out at that time about, that really one of the missing things for bringing local food to the mainstream marketplace was distribution. It was just kind of this missing piece. And so I was talking to a group of people who were getting ready to do another feasibility study, and we were like, you know what, this is silly. Let's start business planning for this because it makes sense. Our thought was that having a viable business to support this kind of thing would make sense in the long term for all those various local vendors. And so we started business planning in 2010, and then we became an LLC in May of 2011 and started deliveries, we became an LLC in February of 2011 and then started deliveries that May. So that's what we were looking for, just really making sure that there was a need, and we were just trying to fill that need, really. And so we started, like I said, with the business planning and raising money, and we started with building a catalog. And the catalog we started with was just a list of local products that we knew and liked. And so we started with those in an Excel spreadsheet and started talking to various folks about what they were looking for and what we could bring them, and figuring out how pricing would work, and figuring out what our margin would generally need to be to make our business go. And basically we found that because we're a distribution company, I don't grow anything, and I don't end up turning around cooking anything. So my joke is just that, well, I'm not a cook, I'm not a farmer, so I just move things around. And so we were building the catalog and had this Excel spreadsheet that was just crazy, and it was very difficult to work on, but we found that that was really the primary thing that folks were interested in, and then what people really needed. And so that was our primary focus for the first little bit. And really, the slide says how did we do it, which makes it sound like past tense, but really, how are we doing it? So we're still in a lot of, we're still raising money, we're still building our catalog, and we are very much still building our customer base. So you can go to the next one. And so, like I said, we took our catalog from an Excel spreadsheet to an online piece. And so now our customers can log into our website and search our catalog by brand, by item, by attribute. Is it GMO-free? Is it organic? And then they can find what they're looking for, place their orders, and then they'll get that usually within 2 days. And so for us, we are our thing is that things are local. And when we say local, we mean locally grown, locally processed, and sometimes even locally packaged. And so while we do carry a lot of locally grown things like our seasonal produce, a lot of meats, our cheeses, grains, and beans, we also carry a lot of grocery items, so a lot of locally processed things, things that aren't necessarily grown around here, like we carry some locally roasted coffees. Clearly, we're not growing coffee around here, but we are supporting businesses that are doing their processes here and have based their businesses here, and the owners live here. So it's an interest in local food and also our local economies and how those work together. So for us, our online catalog is all about being really clear about what you're finding. Some folks are really price sensitive, so maybe they're not going to be able to pay extra for organic, but they do want to start at least with local. So we do carry some conventional produce as well, although really it's our organic stuff that sells the best. And then, yep, so we have a lot of sustainability issues and a lot of health issues with our gluten-free and nitrate-free and a lot of those pieces as well. So you can go to the next one. And so Dan was talking about a lot of really great things around how they work together with all the different farmers, and that's one of the things that we're still working out and figuring out with a lot of our produce planning, and how we can have consistent packaging and handling of products, so we have consistent type of produce products when we do that during that part of the year. And so that's one of the things that we consider when we're bringing on new vendors. And now, when we first started, it was really a, how, will you be in my catalog? I'm trying to get this thing going, and we would love to have you. I like your products. I'm sure our customers would like your products. And it's come now to where folks are coming to us, wanting us to do their distribution, and we're finding that we have to be really clear about what we do and what we need from our vendors. And so we have to make sure that we have folks who are going to be reliably, consistently able to get us products that we order, that we can actually get it. Are they close enough for us to pick up, or can they deliver to us? And we have to make sure that there's consistent quality of products as well. And a lot of our customers are very interested in the sustainability of those products, whether it's the sustainability of the products or their packaging and all those pieces. And then are our customers actually interested in these various products? And the final one, which has become a bigger and bigger one, is, are you interested in distribution, or are you still doing that yourself? So we found that a lot of times people have a small company, and they think that we would be a great way to help grow their company because we already service a lot of folks. And what we've been telling people is, if they're interested in us doing their distribution, it's something that we can take over for them, but that we are not a marketing company. We do the logistics. We get everything from point A to point B, C, D, and E, but we really aren't marketers. And so we're always trying to encourage folks to do their own distribution until they really can't do it anymore, and to make sure that they include the cost of their distribution in their prices to their customers, so that when they are ready to pass it off so they can focus on their own business, that that's not a surprise for any customers, that there is a cost of distribution. And on a lot of times, small and new vendors don't think about that. They figure that their time and their gas and their energy is completely free, and so we're trying to encourage folks to think about that during their business planning. So I think I'm ready for the next one. So produce, and I'm really appreciative that Dan and Darien covered a lot of these things. Produce is a really tricky one for us. When people think local food, they think produce, and it's beautiful, it's sexy, it's fresh, it's delicious, it's always amazing. But for us as a company, we need a year-round business. We have to have things that we can deliver all the time. And so while we're working with a lot of folks on greenhouse and year-round production, the produce is still a tricky thing that really we have to relearn pretty much every new produce season because we grow so much every year. We're kind of a new company every produce season. So we just finished up our 3rd year, learned lots more, and have lots of ways to improve what we're doing for next year. Maybe Daniel come help me. And so, so the challenges that we see around produce are primarily the seasonality, the price fluctuations, availability of different things, and the consistency of different products, and that has to do with a lot of the packing and handling that that Dan talked about, where you'd have people using old boxes in various sizes, and for us, we have to try and keep it really, really consistent across all of our vendors. We're really clear about where our different products come from when they are delivered, but we have found that when someone orders spinach, we try not to give them the option of which farm it's going to come from, but rather say this is an organic spinach, and when it arrives, we'll say this organic spinach came from Full Circle Farm, for example. So that's been one of the things that's been very interesting and tricky for us as we've been bringing all that stuff in. And then, the food safety concerns and new rules are going to be becoming a bigger deal as we move forward. And then insurance is always an interesting challenge for a lot of our vendors as well. The benefits of our produce, well, people always love it. It's beautiful, it's great, and it's definitely one of the most exciting parts of the local food scene. Like I said earlier, and people love it, but there are a lot of challenges that go around with that for sure. So I think we can go to the next one. And so our idea when we started LoCo Food Distribution was, how do we bring local products to the mainstream? And so when we started with restaurants, because you can walk into a restaurant and those people can make their own decisions for the most part. They can say, yes, I'll take that. Yes, I'll take that. And you know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for okra. They can make those decisions, and so I started working with them first when we first started making deliveries. And then we started working with independent grocery stores because, again, those folks can make their own decisions right there and then. And so as we continue to grow, we started bringing on more chain grocery stores and also institutions. And those are all places that are bigger. They've got more, well, bureaucracy to go through. There aren't decision makers necessarily right there when you walk in. And so those have become a bigger part of what we're doing all the time. And I think one of the ones that is probably the most interesting for this particular conversation are the hospitals. We work with a number of hospitals in Denver and Fort Collins, and they're really looking for options around healthier food and more local food, and also a lot of gluten-free products because that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue with a lot of the folks that they're seeing within their institutions. There's also been a movement called Healthcare Without Harm, and what they're doing is they're looking at, I think it's 7 different topic areas, and one of those has been food, and how do they provide healthy food within a hospital, which makes so much sense. It sounds like it's no duh, but it's actually something that they're having to go back and review and start to really focus on, because that hasn't really been one of the focuses. So, so we've been starting to work with a lot of those folks, and that's been very interesting to see how a lot of those things go and where all the different food within those institutions ends up. Because you've got the room service piece, you've got cafeterias for the folks who come and visit the hospital, and then there are sometimes doctors' lounges, and then there are sometimes gift shops, all of which have various levels of food. So there we are. I think that's my next one. Let's see, I think I have one more. Oh, so this one I'll keep really quick. I think I'm running out of time here. So basically, like I said at the very beginning, we're trying to build a local food system through a viable business. We feel that the viability of our business encourages the viability of a lot of other local businesses. And when we see demand from our customers for particular products, like right now I've got a lot of folks looking for non-GMO meats, that really helps drive a lot of the production, because then folks know that if they grow it, we actually have a place for that. So that's a lot of what we're trying to do and make those connections from suppliers to customers and growing small businesses, creating jobs, and generally providing access for local food. And I think that's it.
Great. Well, thank you to all of our speakers today. You guys were great, and you gave some different perspectives, starting with the very broadest about what food hubs were, specific to a farmer model, and then more from really the distribution, aggregation and distribution elements. We have received a couple of questions, so we'll get started with those. And please do submit more questions if you've got them, and we've got a couple of minutes left for that.
Great. So our first question comes from Katie, and I believe it's directed towards Darien. Katie asks, how large of a region does a food hub typically serve? She's thinking specifically about the mountain regions and the western slopes. Darien, can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think the essential thing as far as a region is to have some urban or some affluent towns or cities in your area. And as long as you have that, you have a market. The food hubs that don't have that often get in trouble. So, you know, I think the size of the area is more dependent upon the geography and what is located within that proximate geography, and how you can incorporate your markets as well as your, not only your markets, but as well as your growers in the same region. So you can't, if you have the growers in the markets, then you have the elements, the basic elements of a food hub. And whatever that takes is what it takes.
Great. And while we have you, Darien, could you speak a little bit more about the typical size, the physical size of a food hub? We're looking for sort of square footage or a range that a food hub typically takes up. Yeah, you know, we're actually starting one in this very small area of a building that's going to be about 2,000 square feet, which will, you know, have some loading docks and some cold storage and freezer space and so forth, and some minimal washing area and so forth, and that's really small. You know, there's huge food hubs, 10,000, 20,000 square feet. Maybe Dan, what's the size of the school? Do you know?
Yeah, ours is 7,000 square feet. The whole school is 30,000 square feet, so there's room to grow. But we found 7,000 was about right, you know, with office, administrative space, kitchen, and then the storage area.
And a kitchen takes up a bunch of space, so it depends on what you incorporate into the food hub. But it's possible to do it in a pretty small area. At least start in a fairly small area. If you start small and don't have kitchens and other type of facilities.
Great. We have a question here for Elizabeth. Elizabeth, do you pay the vendors when you bring on their products, or do you get products from the vendors and then when they are ordered by customers, buy them from the vendors? Does that question make sense, and can you take it away?
It does. It does. So we list products, and then we order products, and then we pay for them from there. Usually we're on about net 30, because most of our our customers are also net 30 with us. So that's always exciting to make sure that all shakes out.
Great. And while we have you, Elizabeth, another question that I think may be directed towards you. Is produce or products ready for delivery when you pick it up, or do you do any post-harvest processing?
Oh, yeah. No, we do not do any post-harvest processing. We are really not technically a food hub. We do a lot of aggregation where we can pull together products from different farms to create a big order, but we don't do any of the processing or packaging ourselves.
Terrific. Darien and Dan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, that's a great role for a food hub to play, is that that quality assurance piece. You know, it just puts another layer in there to ensure that there's good products going out for market. And it can also make it more efficient, if you can put a washing and packing line in. So we're looking very closely at doing that at Excelsior.
Great. Well, with that, I'm going to move on to our next question from Scott. Are there any food hub models that have been initiated, and managed through a governmental structure? managed through the County Healthy Communities Department as an example. Does anybody want to take that question? Any food hub models that have been implemented through governmental structures?
That sounds like one for you, Darien.
Well, I was thinking it would be one for you, but the ones that we're working on are cooperatives, private for-profit cooperatives, and that's generally the usual model. It doesn't mean that government is not involved. For example, the one in northern New Mexico, the city and the county are very involved, very supportive. In the Indian food hub model, we're working with all the pueblos. But it's often the impetus usually has to come from the growers. And if your food hub is managed by the growers and the growers are involved in how it's run, that's usually the best way to do it, because the food hub is to benefit the growers, and the growers know best what they're looking for. So I like that linkage. At the same time, I believe, as we've done our studies, we have heard of some food hubs that are public-private partnerships where government owns or runs or puts money into part of it. In the northern New Mexico food hub, for example, the city is actually contributing a building and will be leasing it to a nonprofit that will run the food hub, and for almost nothing, because they want to support it. So you often have these public-private partnership structures, and that's fairly common. But for a government to actually run a food hub completely, I haven't really seen that.
All right, terrific. We do have a couple more minutes left to send in any last-minute questions. I'm going to read the last one that I have in front of me right now. This is directed towards Elizabeth. What is the online ordering platform or software that you use?
So we looked for a really long time for a platform. What we ended up with was a program called Entree, which is made by NECS, which I think is New England Computer Systems, I think is what their company is called. We did a lot of research and found that there were kind of two different types of food catalog options. You could go with the mainstream type of food distribution software, where you'd have a really robust back end for reporting and lot tracking and commission for your sales team and all those kinds of back end really standard mainstream distribution companies. Or you could go with some really beautiful, warm, fuzzy local food distribution softwares. And so we ended up actually going for the mainstream software that had a lot of the just back-end stuff that I wasn't going to be able to invent and just intuitively know everything that we would need, and decide that we could add our warm fuzzy ourselves on the front end there.
Great, thank you so much. And we've got one last question that we're going to end on today for the group. Do you find that local farmers are able to offer produce at an affordable price for low-income families while also being sustainable for the farm?
Yeah, I guess I could take a stab at that one. I think it really boils down to farm size, frankly, economies of scale. What we've seen is a lot of small farms have been kind of the pioneers, in so much of the local food movement and with the food hubs. But there's been some attrition of those small farms as these food hubs mature, because there simply isn't the economies of scale to help keep those farms profitable, while selling at wholesale prices. So this is a question individually for every farm, but what Fred Kirschman calls ag of the middle is kind of the the name of the game for a lot of these food hubs. There just has to be enough production to sell, at competitive prices, and certainly to address, food security issues. And here we've been able to just do that on a very small scale by donating number 2 products, or selling those really inexpensively, or a couple of gleaning opportunities. But it's been kind of hit or miss, and really deserves some more attention, some strategic attention. Yeah, that's a real tough one there.
Let me just add a little bit to that. It's a very good question. And in the southern Colorado, northern New Mexico area is kind of a cohesive geographical, ecological, and economic region. And if you look at northern New Mexico, for example, more than half of your farms lose money, but farmers are not about to quit farming. And they do other jobs to support their farm. And a lot of times farmers will try and maximize their income through selling retail in farmers markets or roadside stands. So it's hard to get them to accept a lower price and say, well, why don't you sell to institutional wholesale markets when they're not even making, they're barely making ends meet selling to retail markets. At the same time, if farmers do a little bit of financial calculation and get a little bit of financial sophistication, they can often see that if they can cover their fixed costs with their retail sales, then all they have to do is cover their variable costs with additional wholesale selling, and they can often expand their total production and really increase their bottom line. But sometimes it takes a little bit of convincing or showing them how that works. But pricing for wholesale markets is definitely a challenge.
Well, thank you all again. Thank you for the great questions from our audience. We really appreciate it. And as you saw in some of the previous slides, we will be providing the contact information for all of our speakers. We have a number of different resources. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is, and as evidenced by the number of you on the call, a hot topic right now. And there's a lot of exploration going on. There's a lot of research that's going on, which makes it really exciting. And I hope that another year or two we do this webinar again and have even more great examples and models to share. So please do take advantage of the resources and the contacts that you have from participating in this webinar. And we hope that we will have you on the call again in December. We do these on a monthly basis, and our next call will be presented by the Colorado Food Systems Advisory Council, who will be sharing their new issue briefs and sharing a little bit about how they hope to be connecting and getting input from local communities. So thank you all so much, and we look forward to having you on future calls.